There is an ancient practice few speak of today, a forbidden knowledge that transforms what destroys others into what propels you forward, a sacred science that converts your deepest wounds into your greatest power. Blood alchemy. Not the superstitious nonsense of turning lead into gold, but something far more valuable. The transformation of pain into unstoppable forward motion. The conversion of what breaks most people into what makes you unbreakable. Look around. What do you see? People crushed beneath the weight of their suffering, frozen by their traumas, defined by their wounds, permanently marked by what happened to them rather than what they did with it. They wear their pain like anchors, forever dragging behind them, forever holding them back from what they might become. But you've always sensed there was another way, haven't you? A voice deep within that whispers, this pain has purpose. A knowing beyond rational thought that says, what tears you apart also shows you what you're made of. You were right to listen, because that voice speaks an ancient truth most have forgotten. Pain is the most potent catalyst for transformation that exists on this earth. The most powerful agent of evolution ever created. The most direct pathway to capabilities impossible to develop in comfort. But only if you know how to use it. Only if you understand the alchemical process that converts raw suffering into refined power. Only if you become what few ever dare to become. A blood alchemist. This isn't about denying pain, about pretending wounds don't cut deep, about masking suffering behind hollow positivity or toxic stoicism. This is about something altogether different, something primal and powerful that resonates in the marrow of your bones, in the chambers of your heart, in the depths of your soul. This is about transformation, not despite your pain, but through it, not around your suffering, but directly into its heart, not avoiding your wounds, but using them as portals to capabilities impossible to access any other way. The first principle of blood alchemy is this: whatever doesn't kill you doesn't automatically make you stronger. It makes you bitter, broken, or bitter, depending on what you do with it. Most choose bitter. They curl inward around their wounds, protecting them, nurturing them, allowing them to fester into poison that slowly corrupts everything it touches. Their pain becomes their identity, their excuse, their reason for remaining small when they were built for greatness. Some remain broken. They never fully recover from what struck them down. They exist in a state of perpetual fracture, forever defined by the moment of impact, forever limited by what was taken from them rather than inspired by what remains. But a rare few, a sacred few, choose better. Not because their pain was less severe, their wounds less deep, their losses less devastating, but because they understand instinctively what others never grasp. That pain is raw material waiting for transformation. That suffering is potential energy seeking release. That wounds are not endings but beginnings, not barriers but doorways, not limitations but launch pads for capabilities that cannot be developed any other way. These rare few are the blood alchemists, the ones who enter the fire that breaks others and emerge not just intact, but forged into something stronger, sharper, more powerful than was possible before the flames. You can become one of them. You already possess everything required. You need only understand the process, the ancient formula, the sacred sequence that transforms what would destroy others into what propels you forward with unstoppable momentum. It begins with the only true starting point for any meaningful transformation. Radical acceptance of what is. Not what you wish was true. Not what should have happened instead. Not what feels fair or just or reasonable. What is, the raw, unfiltered reality exactly as it exists right now. This acceptance isn't surrender, isn't submission, isn't giving up or giving in. It's establishing proper contact with reality, with the actual territory, rather than your map of how things ought to be. With a genuine starting point, rather than the imaginary one you wish you occupied. Because you cannot transform what you deny exists, cannot convert what you refuse to touch, cannot use as fuel what you won't even look at directly. The blood alchemist begins by turning toward pain rather than away from it, by opening to suffering rather than closing against it, by embracing wounds rather than hiding them behind scar tissue and armor. This isn't masochism, isn't glorification of suffering, isn't worship of trauma as virtue. It's strategic necessity, the essential first step in a process that eventually transmutes this very pain into the most potent fuel for forward motion human beings can access. When you fully accept what is, something remarkable happens. The energy previously spent fighting reality, denying truth, maintaining illusion suddenly becomes available for productive use. The massive resources devoted to pretending, to resisting, to rejecting what cannot be changed, are liberated for the true work of transformation. This acceptance creates space where none existed before, room to maneuver, freedom to choose response rather than remain trapped in reaction, power to convert what happened to you into what you do next. With this foundation established, the alchemical process advances to its second crucial phase, extraction of wisdom. Every pain contains specific intelligence unavailable through any other source. Every wound holds unique insight impossible to gain any other way. Every suffering conceals particular knowledge that comfort cannot provide. Most never access this wisdom. They're too busy avoiding the pain that contains it, distracting from the wound that holds it, numbing the suffering where it resides. The blood alchemist does something radically different, something that appears insane to conventional minds but contains a higher sanity, accessible only to those with courage to enter territories others fear to tread. The alchemist moved toward pain with this essential question. What does this suffering know that I need to learn? What wisdom does this wound contain that I cannot access any other way? What intelligence lives in this pain that will serve my forward motion if I extract it? This isn't abstract philosophy, not distant theory, not comfortable intellectual exercise. This is soul-level surgery, heart-open exploration, mind-expanding revelation accessed only through direct engagement with what most spend their entire existence avoiding. The extraction process requires brutal honesty, unflinching self-examination, courageous confrontation with truths that would remain forever hidden without the illumination that only suffering provides. What did this pain reveal about your vulnerabilities that comfort would have kept concealed? What did this wound expose about your capabilities that ease would have left undiscovered? What did this suffering uncover about reality that security would have left obscured? These revelations aren't comfortable, aren't pleasant, aren't the kind of insights that arrive with gentle warmth and reassuring embrace. They cut to bone, pierce to marrow, penetrate to core. But within them lies treasure beyond price, intelligence unavailable any other way, wisdom impossible to access through paths of ease. The blood alchemist extracts this precious resource not with resentment, but with reverence, not with bitterness, but with gratitude, not with rejection of the messenger, but with recognition of the message's irreplaceable value. Because here's the truth, most will never understand. Some forms of wisdom can only be purchased with pain. Some kinds of knowledge can only be acquired through suffering. Some types of insight can only emerge through wounds that cut to the very center of who you thought you were. With this extraction complete, the alchemical process advances to its third essential phase, conversion to fuel. Pain contains energy, massive amounts of it, raw power waiting for direction, potential force seeking release. Most squander this energy. They let it dissipate through pointless rumination, through repetitive complaint, through endless retracing of what happened without extracting what matters. Or worse, they direct this power toward destruction. They allow pain to fuel vengeance rather than vision, retaliation rather than recreation, harm rather than healing. The blood alchemist understands that this energy is far too valuable to waste, too potent to squander, too powerful to direct toward anything less than the creation of something magnificent from the very materials of their suffering. This conversion isn't mystical, though it sometimes feels that way. It's alchemical in the truest sense. The transformation of base material into higher form through specific process applied with disciplined precision. It begins with a fundamental shift in orientation, from backward facing to forward focused, from what happened to what happens next, from what was done to you to what you will do with it. This shift isn't denial of the past. It's strategic utilization of its energy for creation of the future. Not forgetting what happened, but refusing to let it become the boundary of what's possible rather than the beginning of what's next. The conversion accelerates through purposeful channeling, through directing the raw emotional power of pain toward specific creation rather than general destruction. Through using the energy of what hurt you to build what helps others. Through transforming personal suffering into transpersonal service. Because pain seeks expression, it will emerge one way or another. The only choice you possess is whether this emergence creates or destroys, whether it builds or demolishes, whether it serves your highest purpose or sabotages your deepest potential. The blood alchemist chooses creation, chooses building, chooses service not from naive idealism, but from strategic understanding that these channels convert pain to power most effectively, most completely, most irreversibly. This conversion culminates in what appears miraculous to those who've never experienced it. The transmutation of what once caused suffering into what now generates strength. The transformation of what once created limitation into what now produces liberation. The alchemy of what once threatened destruction into what now ensures creation. With this conversion established, the process advances to its fourth phase, where true mastery begins. Integration of shadow. Pain reveals parts of yourself you'd rather not see, aspects you'd prefer to disown, elements you've been taught to reject, repress, deny. Your anger, your darkness, your capacity for destruction, your primitive power that civilization pretends doesn't exist while secretly fearing its emergence. Most run from these revelations. They push these aspects back into shadow, hoping they'll disappear if denied attention, pretending they don't exist if given new names, believing they can be eliminated if judged harshly enough. This rejection creates fracture, internal division, civil war of self against self that depletes the very energy needed for forward motion. The blood alchemist chooses a different path, a more challenging route, a more courageous approach to what most fear within themselves. Integration rather than rejection, incorporation rather than division, wholeness rather than fragmentation. This integration isn't indulgence, isn't surrender to primitive impulse, isn't abdication of higher faculties to lower drives. It's the recognition that true power comes not from denying aspects of yourself, but from bringing them into conscious relationship. Not from pretending you don't contain darkness, but from ensuring this darkness serves rather than sabotages your light. Not from rejecting your capacity for destruction, but from channeling it toward demolishing obstacles rather than opportunities. The integrated alchemist doesn't become less civilized through this process. They become more whole, more complete, more capable of directing all internal resources toward singular purpose, rather than wasting precious energy on endless internal conflict. This integration creates coherence where division once existed, alignment where contradiction once prevailed, unified force where scattered impulses once competed for control. And from this coherence emerges something that appears supernatural to those who've never experienced it. A forward momentum that seems unstoppable because it harnesses everything within you, rather than setting parts against each other in perpetual stalemate. With this integration established, the alchemical process reaches its fifth and most potent phase, manifestation through action. All previous phases mean nothing without this essential culmination. All insights remain theoretical, all transformations potential, all integrations conceptual without the decisive movement from internal process to external expression. The blood alchemist understands this necessity at bone level, recognizes that alchemy completes not in hidden laboratories of mind and spirit, but in the visible arena of tangible creation, of measurable impact, of undeniable contribution. This manifestation occurs through specific action that converts invisible transformation into visible result. That translates internal alchemy into external change. That demonstrates through undeniable outcome the reality of what has occurred within. These actions aren't random, aren't scattered, aren't disconnected from the alchemical process that preceded them. They are precise expressions of transformed pain, exact applications of converted suffering, specific utilizations of integrated shadow. The betrayed create deeper loyalty. The abandoned build stronger community. The wounded become healers of precisely what hurt them. Not despite their pain, but because of it. Not working around their suffering, but directly through it. Not avoiding their wounds, but using them as uniquely qualified gateways to service impossible to provide, without having walked through exactly what they endured. This manifestation creates impact impossible to generate any other way, contribution unavailable through paths of ease, service inaccessible to those who haven't alchemized similar suffering into similar strength. And through this impact, this contribution, this service, something remarkable occurs. The final and most complete transformation of pain into power. The ultimate conversion of personal suffering into transpersonal contribution. The alchemical miracle of private wound becoming public medicine. The blood has completed its transformation. What began as raw suffering has become refined service. What started as personal pain has evolved into universal power. The alchemist stands transformed, not just internally but externally, not just conceptually but practically, not just potentially but actually. You can become this alchemist, can complete this transformation, can convert your unique suffering into your specific contribution, can transform what hurt you most deeply into what helps others most powerfully. Not despite your pain, but directly because of it. Not around your wounds, but straight through their center. Not avoiding your darkness, but integrating it as an essential component of the light you're here to bring. This path isn't easy, isn't comfortable, isn't for the faint of heart or weak of spirit. It demands courage most will never access, requires honesty few will ever embrace, necessitates discipline many will never develop. But for those willing to enter the alchemical fire, to endure the transformative heat, to embrace the sacred process, something beyond price awaits. The capacity to convert what could have destroyed you into what now propels you forward. The ability to transform what might have ended your journey into what now accelerates it beyond all previous limitations. The power to use what hurt you as the precise tool for healing others wounded in similar ways. This isn't theory, isn't wishful thinking, isn't comfortable philosophy far removed from the bloody reality of genuine suffering. This is practical alchemy, accessible to anyone with courage to enter the fire rather than flee from its heat, available to anyone willing to turn toward pain rather than away from it, attainable by anyone determined to extract the specific wisdom that suffering alone can provide. The world doesn't need more people broken by their pain, defined by their trauma, limited by their wounds. The world needs blood alchemists. Those rare individuals who enter what breaks others and emerge not just intact but transformed, not just surviving but thriving, not just continuing but accelerating with a momentum that appears supernatural to those who've never experienced the unstoppable forward motion that only converted suffering can produce. You can become one of these alchemists, can complete this transformation, can convert your unique pain into your specific power. The process has already begun within you. The fire already burns. The alchemy already unfolds beneath the surface of conscious awareness. The only question remaining is whether you'll embrace this process fully, whether you'll step toward the flame rather than away from it, whether you'll become not the victim of your suffering but its alchemist, converting what could have destroyed you into what now propels you forward with unstoppable momentum. The choice stands before you, as it always has, as it always will. Will you remain defined by what hurt you, or will you become defined by what you did with it? Will you stay trapped in the prison of past pain? Or will you use that very pain as the key that unlocks capabilities impossible to access any other way? Will you continue carrying your wounds as burdens that hold you back? Or will you transform them into the precise wings that enable you to fly higher than was possible before you fell? The blood alchemist chooses transformation, chooses forward motion, chooses to convert suffering into service, pain into power, wounds into wisdom. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's the only path that extracts full value from what you've already endured. Not because it's simple, but because it's the sole approach that ensures what hurt you most deeply becomes what helps others most powerfully. The alchemical fire burns whether you acknowledge it or not. The only variable you control is what emerges from its transformative heat. Will you emerge diminished or developed, broken or built, defined by what happened to you or by what you did with it? The blood alchemist makes this choice consciously, deliberately, with full recognition of what's at stake, not just for themselves, but for everyone their transformed suffering could serve if converted to its highest form. And in that choice, something miraculous occurs. The very pain that could have ended their journey becomes the precise fuel that propels them forward with unstoppable momentum. Not despite their wounds, but because of them. Not around their suffering, but through its very center. Not avoiding their darkness, but integrating it as an essential component of the light they're here to bring. This is blood alchemy, the sacred science of converting pain into unstoppable forward motion. The ancient art of transforming personal suffering into universal service. The forbidden knowledge that what hurts you most deeply can become what helps others most powerfully. If you're hearing these words, the alchemical process has already begun within you. The sacred fire already burns. The transformation already unfolds beneath conscious awareness. The only remaining question is whether you'll embrace it fully, whether you'll step toward rather than away from the flame, whether you'll become not the victim of your suffering, but its alchemist. The choice is yours, as it always has been, as it always will be. Choose wisely. The world awaits what only your transformed suffering can create.